Feral Druid allows us druids to transform into a cat, ripping our enemies apart with our bare claws in this instant, with a lot of bleed, damage, and dots or damage over time spells. So this is going to be a full guide for the War Within Season 1, and I am going to be showing this in a very beginner-friendly format, but also veteran-friendly as well, giving you everything you need to know to succeed. Starting off with our stat priority, the main stat we are going to need, our primary stat, is of course agility. We're going to get more and more of this by getting a higher eye level of gear. So the higher the eye level of your gear, the better or more agility you're going to have. And that's your primary objective with gearing. After that, the stat priority that you can see on the screen now is the priority you're generally going to follow, but you only want to follow this if you're looking at two pieces of gear that are the same level. Overall, eye level is always going to reign king with more agility. Versatility is actually the same for every class and spec. It increases damage and healing done while also reducing damage taken. It's a really good all-round ability. Mastery is individual for every spec, and for us as a Feral Druid, it's called Razor Claws. When we get more mastery, we increase the damage done by our cat, form bleed, and other periodic abilities and finishing moves. So basically, just all of our abilities pretty much are just going to be doing more damage for the more mastery we have. Haste is actually going to increase how fast we regenerate our energy, which is our main resource as a Feral Druid. And it's also going to increase how fast we attack, how fast our dots and our bleeds actually do damage to our enemies, and things like that. Critical Strike is going to increase the chance to do double damage. Then looking at our set bonus from the gear we're getting in Season 1, the 2 set means that our Tiger's Fury is going to increase our chance to critically strike, starting at 6% and then increasing every few seconds. And the 4 set means that our critical strikes with our combo point generating abilities increase direct damage of our next Ferocious Bite and Rampant Ferocity or Primal Wrath by 15%, stacking up to... Now, this may sound complex if you are a beginner watching. Don't worry, I'm going to fully explain what this means and how we're going to put it into action in the rotation part of this video. So moving on to the utilities and kind of defensive spells that we have as a druid, I'm going to be showing you the most important ones now. That's not to say that there aren't other utilities available. There are quite a lot you have as a druid in your toolkit. However, as a beginner, I do not want to overload you, and these are really the ones you need to worry about. Once you're more comfortable with the specialization, I would just go through your spellbook and the druid talent tree, so that's the talent tree on the left, and just see the other bits and bobs that you do have available. So starting off with, on the left, what we can do to our enemies to stop them, we've got Cyclone. Throwing our enemy up into the air, incapacitating them for a few seconds. That does mean that we can't attack them and they can't attack us. We've got Hibernate here, forcing our enemy to sleep for 40 seconds, but damage will awaken them. It does only work on beasts and dragonkin, so you need to kind of work out, who is my enemy here. We have Typhoon, one of my favorites. It's instant, so you can see I can use it on the move here on these target dummies. It's going to blast away your enemies, knocking them back, and also slowing them for a few seconds. Speaking of slows, we've got Ursul's Vortex here, and you can place this wherever you want. You can see here this vortex appears, and enemies inside it are going to be massively slowed. Now, when they try and exit it, they'll be pulled back into the center of the vortex when they first attempt to leave it. And lastly, we have Entangling Roots. You can see here, I'm going to entangle the target dummy in roots. Now, it sometimes will actually be interrupted by damage, but not always. Now on to the things we can do to improve our quality of life for us and our allies. We have Dash here, increasing your movement speed by 60% and immediately putting you into cat form. One thing I want to note is that when you do go into cat form, you will actually be increasing your movement speed by 30%. So going into Dash will add another 30%. Just to reiterate that, Dash is going to give you a 60% movement speed buff for 10 seconds, but going into cat form will speed you a little bit anyway. We've got Renewal, simply renewing 30% of your maximum health. We've got Innovate, giving to you or a fellow healer unlimited mana, basically, for casting spells for 8 seconds. So when you cast healing spells for the next 8 seconds, it won't cost any mana at all. Then we've got Bark Skin, reducing damage taken while also increasing healing taken. Your skin is as tough as bark. And you can use it while stunned, feared, frozen, asleep, etc. And lastly, we have Mark of the Wild, increasing the versatility by 3% for you and any party or raid members. You can also use it on people in the wild. I could probably even use it on this NPC here. Let's see. No, it doesn't work. But you can use it on people just out in the wild. You can target them and then use it on them, and it will increase their versatility. Remember, that is the stat that increases damage and healing done and also decreases damage taken. So again, it will actually affect you, your party and raid members, or people that you target out in the open world. And that is it. The last one, as I said, go through your spellbook. The last one I want to mention is Rebirth. Usually you can only resurrect allies out of combat, but Rebirth will let you actually resurrect them on a 10-minute cooldown when you are in combat. So if somebody dies on a boss fight, you can actually just resurrect them there and then. Do be careful where you do this. You don't want to resurrect them into something, but this is a really, really useful utility that we have. And the cooldown is shared among the party. So if you have like a Death Knight, another Druid, or anyone else that has paladins that have, combat reses available, the cooldown is shared between you. Now for the exciting bit, which is, of course, the actual rotation we're going to be doing. If you can really call it a rotation in PvP, of course. So first up, we've got this top bar, and this is going to be your kind of opener and the things I think you should do as soon as you go into combat. Then we've got our kind of general and burst damage rotation, and then the utilities that we have at our disposal as a Feral Druid for the War Within. For the hero talent, we are going with Druid of the Claw, and I will be going through this fully shortly after this part as well. Now, if you don't know Feral Druid that well, we have combo points. Some abilities are going to generate combo points and some are going to spend them. Things like Shred and Rake will generate combo points, and then we're going to spend them on our Ferocious Bite and Rip here. And we have up to 5 combo points. When you go into combat, or when you go into, say, the arena or the battleground, etc., I would shift into cat form and enter stealth. So using Prowl here, we can really get the element of surprise. Now, if you want to sneak up, you could then use a Cyclone. You are going to come out of cat form briefly, but you could use Cyclone on your enemy, on one of them, say, to incapacitate them for a few seconds, especially if they're going to try and force your trinket. I would always try and apply all of your bleeds to as many enemies as you can, maybe focusing on the healer. If you can get the healer to use their trinket really early on, they will be in a bit of, is it something water? Deep water? I don't know. It ain't looking good, let me tell you. So I would come straight in with Tiger's Fury, increasing and restoring energy immediately and increasing damage of all your attacks for their full duration. And then I would come in with a Rake. Now, you will sometimes see that you have Ravage. This is usually your Ferocious Bite, and that is actually procced from the hero talents that we are taking. There's going to be a lot of bleeds here. I would use Rake. I would come in with using maybe Brutal Slash. Get Rip up as your first use case of your combo point spenders. This is also going to add a bleed, and you can also add Moonfire as well to get another dot up on the enemy. After that, you can go in with Feral Frenzy. So basically, come in, use Tiger's Fury, use Rake, use Moonfire, spend those combo points on Rip, then use Feral Frenzy, unleashing a Furious Frenzy, clawing your target 5 times, and applying in another additional bleed. That will actually award you a full 5 combo points. So you can basically go build up combo points, spend them, build up 5 combo points immediately, and then spend them on either Ravage or Ferocious Bite. It's the same ability, but it will proc as Ravage from the hero talents. And that would be a really good bursty opener that you can use when you go in. Something else you can use for burst is Incarnation Avatar of Ashmane, an improved cat form that gives you a Berserk cooldown. Energy cost of all cat form abilities is reduced, and Prowl can be used once while in combat, so you can go back into stealth when you use this as well, which is fantastic. Generate one combo point every 1.5 seconds, and combo point generating abilities will generate an additional combo point. Finishing moves restore up to 3 combo points generated over the cap as well, and all damage is increased. So it's a massive burst. And again, get up your rake, get up your moonfire, use your brutal slash to build any combo points, and then if they don't have rip, get rip up. Otherwise, use your ferocious bite. You can use Tiger's Fury and Feral Frenzy to get another 5 combo points, and bam, you've got another finisher on them. Otherwise, using shred to generate combo points outside of that, and that is your kind of burst period we can use there. Looking at the utilities we have Survival Instincts, massively reducing how much damage you take. Bark Skin, reducing how much damage you take, increasing your healing as well. And damage will not prevent any spell casting. Heart of the Wild is also really interesting. This is going to actually improve your spells from other specs. So your Bear Form will give you more stamina, and you can use multiple uses of Iron Fur, and Frenzied Regeneration has 2 charges rather than 1. If you go into Bear Form, you may or may not already know that your armor and stamina will be massively increased, and this is a fantastic way of making yourself a bit more hardy in PvP combat. But you can also then, in Bear Form, use Frenzied Regeneration, which will heal you for a few seconds for 30% of your health and increase any healing you do receive. When using Heart of the Wild, it will also increase how much healing your regrowth does, which you will have to come out of cat form to use. However, it can be a really quick way of getting a heal out, especially if your healer is, incapacitated at the time. For movement speed, in cat form, we already have a bit more movement speed, but we can use dash to quickly dart out, and also use stampeding roar to increase our movement speed for our allies as well. And then we have wild charge, where we can leap behind an enemy, dazing them, which is really good. I've already explained cyclone like in the intro, etc., with when you go in, but you can also use it whenever you want to incapacitate your enemies, not just in the opener. We also have Mighty Bash. Looks like here you can only use it in cat form because of the icon, but actually you can use this in any shape-shifted form that you like, which will again stun the target for a few seconds. And Skull Bash is another fantastic one. You charge and bash the target's skull, interrupting spell casting and preventing anything in that skull from being cast for another 3 seconds as well. And that is the general kind of rotation and things we're going to be using as a Feral Druid in PvP. For the PvP talents you're going to be taking, I quite like Fresh Wound, where basically your Rake has a guaranteed crit if the enemy does not have Rake on them. So whenever we're putting it back on and reapplying it, that is going to be a guaranteed critical strike. Thorns is a really good one, especially as we aren't going to be in melee range, and that will also slow them as well, so you can kind of jump around a bit more. And then we've got Ferocious Wound. Attacking with a 5 combo point Ferocious Bite reduces the target's maximum health by up to 5% for 30 seconds, and that can stack twice as well. Ferocious Wound can only be active on one target at once, however. Those are generally the few that I like to go with. And then there's this one here, Predatory Swiftness. This is actually a really interesting talent for PvP. Your finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo point to make your next regrowth or entangling roots instant free and castable in all forms. So when you use your finishing moves here, like Ferocious Bite, like Rip, we could then get an instant regrowth or entangling roots, meaning we can quickly heal ourselves or quickly incapacitate our enemy. So in this build, we are going with the Druid of the Claw hero talents. This is available to both Guardian and Feral DPS Druids. So if you do change specs and you really like Druid of the Claw gameplay, you can also use it in your other spec as well. So going through it then, we're starting off with Ravage. It's a passive where your auto attacks have a chance to make your next maul become Ravage instead, where you're slashing through your target in a wide arc, dealing damage to your enemies and to all other enemies in front of you. So basically, our auto attacks have a chance to make our next maul do that AoE arc damage as Ravage instead of maul. Going down the left first, you have Fount of Strength, basically increasing our resources on our character, and also some regen as well. Again, with Wild Shape Mastery, we're keeping some of our armor and health when we're switching forms, and Iron Fern Frenzied Regeneration will also persist in cat form. For 6 seconds after entering bear form, you heal for a small amount of damage taken over the last 8 seconds. So again, more regeneration talents there. We then have our first option, Empowered Shapeshifting or Wild Power Surge. Again, quite utility focused, I would say, on empowered shapeshifting, where frenzied regen can be cast in cat form for 40 energy. Bear form reduces magic damage you take, and shred and swipe damage is increased. Mangle damage also increased. Wild Power Surge, however, Mangle grants feline potential. When you have 6 stacks, the next time you transform into cat form, gain 5 combo points, and your next Ferocious Bite and Rip deal increased damage for its full duration. I would go for Wild Power Surge if you're in Feral, and pretty much Empowered Shapeshifting if you're going Guardian, and that would be the choice I would make on those nodes. Dreadful Wound, now going through the middle. Ravage, remember that's the ability we're going to get from our maul up here, also inflicts a bleed that causes damage over 6 seconds, and saps its victim's strength, reducing the damage they deal to us. We also then have another choice, Ruthless Aggression or Killing Strikes. Ruthless Aggression, quite simply increasing our attack speed when we use Ravage, or Killing Strikes. Ravage increases our agility and the armor granted by Iron Fur by 20%. Your first Mangle after entering combat makes your next maul become Ravage, and that's a 100% chance on there. Aggravate Wounds, every maul, raise, mangle, thrash, or swipe you cast extends the duration of your Dreadful Wounds up to an additional 8 seconds. And again, Dreadful Wounds is the talent we chose up here. Going on to the right-hand side, Maul and Rage damage is increased, Stampeding Roar's duration is increased, really nice utility there for increasing the duration of the speed we can give our allies. And then Tear Down the Mighty, the cooldown of Pulverize is reduced, or Strike for the Heart, where your critical strike chance and strike damage are increased, and Mangle heals you for 1% maximum health. If we need the healing, I would go for Strike for the Heart. Otherwise, if we're losing, Pulverize more, then go for that. Lastly, on the bottom, Claw Rampage. During Berserk, Mangle, Swipe, and Thrash have a 25% chance to make your next maul become Ravage. So it all basically is, there's a good amount of utility in Druid of the Claw. I really, really like it, with things like Pax Endurance and the talents we've got on the left side, just doing kind of loads of bits and bobs on your different regenerations, etc. And then also getting, some AoE damage out there with Ravage. I really, really do like Druid of the Claw. Hopefully you guys do too, because that is what we're taking with this build. Finally, looking at the consumables, they have, of course, all just changed. We're in the new expansion, The War Within. A few things have actually changed, and I love the changes. Let's start off by looking at the enchants. A few things have changed. We've got new ways to add sockets to our gear, gem sockets, from the weekly vault. And this is now called Nerubian Gem Weavers. You can add a socket to your head, wrist, and waist. You can get those in your weekly vault. It's also changed how we add sockets. Am I just deja vuing myself right now? In the Dragonflight, you could have up to 3 sockets on your neck. Now it's 2. However, you can have 2 sockets on every piece of jewelry, which I love. So you can add 2 sockets on your neck with the Magnificent Jeweler's setting, and also on each individual ring for 6 gem sockets on your jewelry. Right, thank God I've said that. On the cloak, we're going for Chant of Winged Grace. This adds avoidance and also some full damage reduction. Crystalline Radiance on the chest, adding priority stat. And on the wrist, it's avoidance as well. On the legs, it's a Stormbound Armor Kit, which adds agility. The boots is Scout's March. This adds 250 speed, so you can move faster. And on the rings, we're going for Critical Strike and Critical Strike with, of course, the Magnificent Jeweler's settings. And on the weapon, it's the Authority of Radiant Power. When you're dealing damage, this has a chance to proc and do a huge amount of damage on your target, while also actually increasing your primary stat, which is agility as well. I'm really liking the changes they've made on these. I really, really am. On the consumables then, we've got the Flask of Tempered Aggression, which is, I think I've gone crazy making all of these videos, which is going to increase your critical strike massively. Feast of the Divine Day increases agility, and a Tempered Potion. This is interesting, right? Remember I said the Flask of Tempered Aggression increases critical strike? Well, the Tempered Potion will increase all secondary stats that are not increased by your flask. So it's going to increase your haste, your mastery, etc., etc. Algari Healing Potion, Iron Claw Whetstone is the weapon oil, increasing attack power. They have brought these back, which I love. So you can put this on your weapon to increase attack power. Crystallized Augment Rune will increase agility. And then gem sockets. First up, we're going to be using the Culminating Blasphemite. This will add primary stats, so agility. And then, for each different gem you have equipped, each different colour, it's going to add 0.15% critical effect. So if we're using a Sapphire, Emerald and Onyx and Ruby, then it's going to basically be a 0.60% increased effect. If you used only Ruby, you should only get 15% or 0.15%. So you need to use a gem of different types. And I would say to use the Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald and Onyx shown here. Thank you so much for watching this guide. I hope it was really useful for you in The War Within Season 1, whether it was for Mythic Plus or raiding. If you do have any questions, I'll be happy to help. My Patreon is in the description below, and that is where you can find my LVUI profiles, which I'll show you in a second. And also, I'm putting together a huge macro list for every single spec that's going to be really useful for you in The War Within as well. I am doing all classes and specs for The War Within, so if you are new to the channel, then please do click this playlist here to check out what else I have, which is all of them. There will also be PvP guides on this channel as well for War Within Season 1, so make sure to look out for that. This here is the UI that I was referring to. As you can see, we've got target frames, etc., left and right, and raid frames go in the middle here, and then weak auras in the middle with an action bar down here. Chat is behind where my camera is. Minimap and details, etc., are here on the right. All of the plater profiles, the voodoo, the LVUI, etc., details profile has all been made by me. And again, you can get this on my Patreon should you like it.